Here we go. It's Friday. Somebody just said LFG, it's Friday in the comment section, and I have to agree with them. Let's go. It's Friday. I'm pumped up. 49ers, the offseason program is probably done. We can't say for sure yet, but we can make a video talking about what we've learned during this 49ers offseason program. If you've been living under a rock as far as 49ers coverage goes, Kyle Shanahan decided to call it after 2 days of veteran mini camp. So we were out there on Tuesday. We were out there on Wednesday. There had originally been a Thursday scheduled, but Shanahan said, nah, we've had enough work. We're not going to do Thursday. Everybody go home, take a rest. Maybe we come back next week. Maybe not. I think the answer is going to be no. The 49ers don't come back next week, even though they still have a little window with which to finish up OTAs. If there is anything next week, it'll probably just be the rookies and really inexperienced players. And then the 49ers will pack it in for good for the summer. And they'll be back on July 29th for the start of training camp. So along those lines, if you're just coming into the room, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about what we learned from the 49ers offseason program. There is the article from this past Wednesday, 49ers minicamp. Nick Bosa lauds Drake Jackson, his new bookend. I'm going to copy and paste the link to that article into the chat section so you can go ahead and subscribe. That's to The Athletic. Of course, you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. To The Athletic, I think you could still get a board for $1 a month, so go ahead and do that. That's where the most in-depth written coverage of the 49ers is going to be, and I'll discuss a little bit of what I wrote after speaking with Nick Bosa on Wednesday. The comments about Drake Jackson are really interesting to me because we know that Nick Bosa knows ball. I mean, we know that he's an athletic freak, but he is an absolute technician who's in love with the game of football. And if Nick Bosa is complimenting some of the stuff that you're doing, you're probably doing something right. Nick Bosa said that Drake Jackson, from an athletic standpoint, can do some stuff that Nick Bosa wasn't able to do as a rookie, mainly from the bend perspective, some of that explosion. Drake Jackson really is a unique case for a 265-pounder because he can do those backflips. You know, some troll on Twitter a couple of weeks ago was like, it doesn't really matter that he can do a backflip because I just want to see him sack the quarterback. And it's like, dude, you don't realize that the ability to do a backflip at 265 pounds showcases explosiveness and athleticism and bend that is very correlated with rushing the passer. I mean, some people just want to make arguments stupid. And I'm here to try to make arguments and make discussions smart. Yes, we're going to apply stuff that's relevant to other discussions. And it's totally relevant that Drake Jackson is athletic enough at 265 pounds to do a backflip, that he has that kind of bend. Nick Bosa took notice of that. And I think that Nick Bosa knows that he's talking about. He knows that there's some correlation between that athletic ability and potential to rush the passer. And that definitely is there with Drake Jackson. All right, so as you have filtered in, I hope that we get to 100 concurrent viewers here in a second. We can get to the pillars of what we learned from the 49ers offseason program. So without further ado, here's pillar number one. Yes, Trey Lance has made very big strides from this point last season. At OTAs last year, Trey Lance was a timid rookie. Jimmy Garoppolo was running the show as he would throughout the entirety of the 2021 season. But at this specific time last year, when we were watching Trey Lance in the offseason program, you could tell that he was swimming. You could tell that he wasn't all too confident out there. And it was exactly what you'd expect out of somebody who had just turned 21 years old, who was previously at the FCS level, only 318 throws at North Dakota State. For Lance last season at OTAs, it was a crash course. And you fast forward 365 days to the OTAs this year, and he looked in command of the offense. He looked in command of the playbook. It looked like he belonged there, and everything from his on-field demeanor to his press conference demeanor had taken a massive, massive stride from last season. So put simply, Trey Lance has made major, major progress from point A to point B. That leads me to point two. No, we still don't know just how good Trey Lance will be in 2022. Two things can be true at once. We can say that Trey Lance has made massive progress from spring in 2021 to spring in 2022, but we can still say that we don't know what Trey Lance is going to do in the regular season. The variables still largely remain unanswered, and they can't be answered until the 49ers actually take the field. And guess what? That's okay, because the unknown that is Trey Lance, that's the fun part of all this. Enjoy it. Steve Young has said it. John Lynch has said it. Reasonable fans have said it. We can sit back and say, I don't know, but I'm really excited about Trey Lance because he's got this physical potential, because he's grown so much over the course of just 1 year. But you can also be realistic. You could say those things and also say it doesn't really matter until he shows up on an actual Sunday in September or beyond and proves it there. And we can speculate all we want. We can say he's been a disappointment. We can say that he's been great. All of those things are noise. What matters is what happens in the fall, on Sundays, when the pads come on, when that Fox NFL Sunday music starts playing. That's when Trey Lance will be judged. That's when we'll have a firm idea of the progress that he's made. Up until then, we can make educated observations about Trey Lance and the progress that is taking place. So, yes, the release has gotten a little bit quicker. Obviously, he's processing the field a lot better than when he was swimming. We can look at Steve Young's comments about how Trey Lance actually is processing really well, but the mechanics still have to catch up a little bit. And guess what? These next few weeks are going to be huge. The next 6 weeks away for Trey Lance's mechanics, other stuff like the contracts for Deebo and Bosa, and the 49ers overall conditioning. But we talk about all the things where Trey Lance has to improve, where he might be. Well, guess what? A lot of work is still on its way here over the next 6 weeks. And the unknown that is Trey Lance, well, that's the fun part of all this. Let's just enjoy the fact that the 49ers are working with moldable clay. I can't tell you for certain that he looks a whole lot better than he did at this point last year. I can't tell you much for certain beyond that. So just have fun, because the 49ers are working with a player who's got a tremendously high upside. Pillar 2. This is what I learned at OTAs. The 49ers defense has a chance to be excellent because of its depth. Now, this is something that we saw on paper. Obviously, I've shared many depth charts with you, and you probably are a consumer of my online 49ers spreadsheet where you could see who's in what slot and who's going to probably start at each position. But, we could have speculated that the defensive depth was good, but until you actually get out there on the practice field and see the full breadth of things, that whole entire room of cornerbacks and safeties, right? I think the cornerback position especially has become so much more robust depth-wise. Until you actually see it, you're just kind of speculating. And I think that, yes, the pads aren't on yet. Yes, the 49ers haven't gone through full-speed practices, but the one position where I could really tell that they're stronger depth-wise this year, and I don't need to see contact, I don't need to see pads, is the secondary, because that's going to be a position where coverage, quickness, all that kind of stuff is important, and that is on display at OTAs. And I'm very impressed already with Charvarius Ward. I think he's going to have a presence for this team. I think Emmanuel Mosley healthy is a good thing for the 49ers, and I think that Ambry Thomas looks stronger than he did last year, and those are all good starts. And so is the fact that Jason Verrett's walking around that practice field. I know he's not playing yet, but Jason Verrett probably going to be back at some point this year, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of the 49ers' depth. I know that I've repeated this take on the secondary quite a bit, but I think that it ultimately is the overarching one that is the summary backbone of what's happening in the defensive backfield. And that's in 2021, this defense relied on Jason Verrett to be healthy. The cornerback position especially did. In 2022, a healthy Jason Verrett would be icing on the cake. So from point A to point B, the 49ers have gotten so much deeper, so much more robust on the back end. And because of that, I think this defense has a chance to be really, really good. And that's the takeaway that I got from OTAs. I don't know if they'll be good. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanism of how they're going to work up front will be, because they're still experimenting, going here and there with alignments, and they obviously don't have the pads on yet. But when I see the personnel that they have on that practice field, I think, again, it comes back down to moldable clay. I think this defense can be really good. And I think, they probably are going to have to be really good, because there will be some growing pains on offense. Just if you look at this realistically, I'm the biggest Trey Lance believer in the world, right? I was out in front of pretty much everybody saying the 49ers should pick this guy months before the draft last year. But while I recommended that, I recognized that Trey Lance would probably need quite a bit of time to really hit his stride just because of the lack of experience at a high college level. He was at North Dakota State. So the drawbacks with Trey Lance, the rawness, the fact that it's going to take him a little while to hit his full stride in the NFL, even after a year of seasoning. The drawbacks are also the positives with Trey Lance, right? And the positive there is that there is moldable clay. There is something that Kyle Shanahan can realize into his vision, and his vision is supersonic offensive play. But until you could get to that point of supersonic offensive play, if you're going to want to keep on winning, if you're going to want to make the playoffs, if you're going to want to maintain your title aspirations throughout this quarterback transition, you better be ready to have the other phases of the game help out with some of those offensive growing pains. And one of the phases of the game is obviously the 49ers defense. The 49ers defense last season finished up hot. They're a bottom half unit throughout the first couple months of the season. But if you look at weighted DVOA, which factors in what's happened lately, way more than what happened way back in week 1 when it's already, week 17 or week 18? Well, the 49ers ranked number 3 in weighted DVOA. So I firmly think this can be a top 2 defense based on the talent infusion in the secondary, the fact that the linebackers are so good, and the fact that Chris Kacerek is coaching a stable of strength in numbers on that defensive line room. So you combine all those things together, and you see a 49ers defense that has the potential to be really good if they can pick up right where they left off from last season. And I think that definitely is possible. And you're probably going to need that in the big picture if it takes this offense a little while to develop consistency. Another overarching point, the mojo of this 2022 49ers team is better than the 2021 team coming out of OTAs. We probably all remember how frustrating and how alarming the 2021 OTA period was, with Jeff Wilson tearing his meniscus getting up from a chair in the locker room, with Justin School tearing his ACL, then Tarvarius Moore popping an Achilles on the practice field, causing the 49ers to just call it. They just, after 2 open OTA sessions, they said, screw this. We're packing it up. We'll hope for better luck at training camp in late July. So the 49ers only got like half of the work in last year because it seemed that they were so snake bit from injuries. And there was just kind of a pall surrounding the team, especially coming off that 2020 season in which they suffered a record amount of injuries during the course of the campaign. Well, you can knock on wood here because nobody likes injuries. But during the course of the 2022 the OTAs, the 49ers didn't seem to have any major injuries. It was some small muscle stuff. Of course, it's football. You're going to see minor issues here and there, players working off on the side field, all this and all that. But you didn't have an Achilles. You didn't have an ACL. You didn't have Jeff Wilson getting hurt standing up in a chair in the locker room. And lo and behold, the 49ers are probably going to be moving on into training camp here with good mojo surrounding the football team. And that's important because there was a weird vibe surrounding the 49ers coming out of OTAs last year. And guess what? They did start the season well. They started 3-5. It seemed that some of that weirdness kind of followed the 49ers throughout the entire first portion of the season. And until they showed up and beat the Rams on Monday Night Football in Week 10 last year, it didn't seem they were able to shake that malaise, the 2020 malaise, right? So it took a lot of time to shake the malaise. And then the 49ers finally shook it, but they barely made the playoffs. It was a tightrope act that was, it wasn't good for people's blood pressure as the 49ers tried to dig themselves out of the hole that they had created. So now maybe in 2022, they won't be facing a hole in the first place. And I think that would be really nice because last year wasn't good for people's blood pressure. Another thing that we learned during OTAs is that Deebo Samuel contractual drama was way, way overblown. It was really clear to me that the trade request came from Deebo Samuel's agent, Tory Dandy, that the drama came from Deebo Samuel's agent, Tory Dandy, whose modus operandi was essentially to throw a bunch of crap on the wall with his clients and see what stuck. Now, to Dandy's credit, I think that he actually did a good job in some of these other negotiations. A.J. Brown got 4 years, $100 million, $25 million per from a new team. If you notice that there was contract drama with A.J. Brown, there's contract drama now with DK Metcalf, there has been contract drama with Deebo Samuel. The common denominator is the agent. Tory Dandy is the agent for all of these wideouts who had or have another year on their contracts, on their rookie deals. Well, if Dandy was trying to create as much chaos as possible to net a quicker payout due to panic, because, some teams can panic and trade, some teams can panic and pay. Well, it worked in the case of Brown. He got $25 million per year, despite the fact that he's had some knee issues, despite the fact that he hasn't been as productive of a player as Deebo Samuel. And it didn't necessarily work right away in the case of Deebo Samuel. But because the 49ers didn't blink, because they didn't budge, I think he just pushed back Deebo getting paid to a little bit later. So I think that Tory Dandy viewed it as a no-lose situation, tried to create as much chaos as possible, see who would bite. Well, the Titans bit with A.J. Brown, and maybe they're planning to trade him anyway. Maybe they didn't want to deal with the fact that they thought that A.J. Brown might not be the most durable player for them moving forward. So they go and they move on to a rookie, right? They drafted Treylon Burks out of Arkansas instead of A.J. Brown. The 49ers, meanwhile, Deebo was too important to them. They didn't blink. They didn't trade him to the Jets. And now Deebo's on the same timeline again as the previous 49ers who had signed a deal after year 3, and Fred Warner and George Kittle in the past 2 seasons. And I don't think there's much drama at all, considering the fact that Carter Shanahan was playing catch with Deebo Samuel at practice the other day. That's Kyle's son. So, Deebo on his Instagram Live yesterday was talking about who the 49ers are playing this year. He was mentioning that they play Atlanta this year. Then, there was a little conversation about where his family is going to be. Basically, the drama's in the rearview mirror. We can now firmly put this contractual situation. I think, when we view it, we could say that it's back on track. And the 49ers, Deebo Samuel, everybody involved seems to be confident that this thing is going to get resolved. And I would expect it to get resolved before training camp next month. Another thing that we learned, we talked about the positional battles, and the ones that people were most interested in because there was, I think, most uncertainty was strong safety and center. Talanoa Hufanga took all the snaps of the first team at strong safety. Jake Brendel took all the snaps for the 49ers first team at center. Those 2 players are favorites to start at their respective positions, but I'm sure that there's still going to be some discussion about that as training camp starts, when pads come on, with George Odom and Tarvarius Moore, 2 other candidates to start opposite Jimmy Ward at center. Both of those guys missed significant time last year. Moore the whole season with an Achilles, and George Odom, well, he didn't play any time with the 49ers because he was with the Colts. So both Odom and Moore playing catch-up through OTAs. We'll see if they've caught up any to Talanoa Hufanga by training camp, but Hufanga is the favorite to start there. And Brendel, he got all the snaps with Trey Lance last year. The 49ers love that familiarity. I think it's Brendel's spot as long as he continues making the 49ers comfortable. So if pads come on and he's terrible and he's getting whipped on every single play, well, then the 49ers might have to look elsewhere at the center position, either at Daniel Brunskill or if J.C. Tretter's still available. Maybe they're willing to pay that kind of money. But I think they like the fact that Brendel was available all of last season, and they want to maintain continuity for Trey Lance to make this development as comfortable as possible. And I already talked about Brendel in another video to explain why the 49ers are doing what they're doing there. The athleticism obviously helps as well, with him being a guy that can move really, really quickly. So like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're walking in. A lot of this stuff is kind of cursory. I know I'm going through the different points that we learned at 49ers OTAs. I've made specific videos about a lot of these points. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so you can go check out the articles on The Athletic and my videos about these topics so we can go into a little bit more depth. My next point is one that I already put up on the screen a little bit earlier. The next 6 weeks are key for Trey Lance's mechanics, Deebo and Bosa contracts, and overall conditioning. The 49ers have to get in good shape. The rookies have to get in good shape. What they do away from the facility is going to be really important to make sure they get training camp off on the right foot. And of course, you do want to get Deebo and Bosa locked up sooner rather than later. Real answers will start coming when the pads come on. So I know a lot of the stuff that I put up here, it's not a real answer to anything. It's just kind of, okay, well, what did we learn? Did the 49ers check that box? Yes, they did. Let's move on. We're going to get really, really substantive come July 29th and beyond when training camp starts. When the pads come on, the offensive linemen can protect themselves. And yes, 49ers training camp will open on July 29th. So put that date on your calendar. Finally, Nick Bosa's quads are still huge. We did learn that at training camp. There's a picture of Nick, who seems to be in great, great shape. He always takes care of his body so well over the offseason. He was out there for the 2 practices of minicamp. Bosa bought a boat out at Fort Lauderdale this offseason. So his life seems to be progressing nicely. The 49ers hope that he takes his game to yet another level after last season, took it to yet another level even after an ACL tear. The guy is a machine built to rush the passer, and you see him up there on the screen. All right, everybody, like and subscribe. It's time to answer just a few questions. This is not my area of expertise. Is Curry playing tonight? We'll see. It's going to be interesting, though. See if the Warriors can even that one up at 2-2. Okay. This is not true. Deebo's contract is sitting on John Lynch's desk. He can't sign it because Jimmy G is holding his pockets. Absolutely false, fake news, whatever you want to call it. The 49ers have $5 million in cap space. It's not going to take that much even to sign Deebo Samuel. If they really want to sign him right now, then all they have to do is rework somebody else's deal. That's assuming if his cap hit's going to go up that much. But no, the 49ers actually want to stagger these cap hits and push them toward the future because that's when they're going to have way more money on the cap. With Fred Warner's deal last year, his cap hit stayed the same before and after a record contract. So it stayed the same as his rookie deal. It's going to be the same case with Deebo Samuel. They have plenty of money to sign him right now. Negotiations right now, I think, are being held up by the fact that there is probably a little bit of a disagreement about the amount of guaranteed money that Deebo Samuel is going to get. But between Cooper Kupp's deal, A.J. Brown's deal, all these deals, you have parameters for the APY. It's going to be 25 to 26 million per year. And now you just got to figure out where the fully guaranteed money lies with Deebo Samuel, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And they can negotiate this up until the deadline, as they should, because deadline pressure is the biggest, spur kind of whip into action for these kind of things. But this has nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo's money. That is 100% absolutely false. Why do the 49ers wait signing key names to extensions? Well, there's no reason to not wait, right? This team isn't playing football at training camp with contact until training camp. This team is not practicing with contact with pads on until training camp. And even then, they're not tackling to the ground. But still, I mean, why would you do something earlier if you can get a better deal for the team a little bit later, right? You want to use that deadline pressure to spur the most efficient action. And it's hard to argue with the 49ers track record on this. They've re-signed multiple guys, the record deals, but they've gotten the deals to the point where both the player and the team are happy. And the way to do that is to let the process run its course. And if you let the process run its course, well, then generally that late July, right before training camp deadline, the soft deadline, it's not a hard deadline, it's a soft deadline. Generally, that has yielded the best results for the 49ers. Seems the competition on the O-line is at right guard. I mean, center might have a little bit of a competition because you got to see what Brendel can do once the pads come on, and if you would rather have Brunskill or some other outside free agent there. But yes, right guard's going to be interesting because Brunskill is the incumbent at right guard, but is Jalen Moore going to take over that spot? Is Spencer Burford going to surge? That's probably less likely because he's still a rookie. Moore's had a year in the system, but the 49ers, I was talking about this on our Athletic Live room yesterday. They have to find a way to keep the line moving, pun intended, along the offensive line. You want to get better from year to year. And if you're going to improve from year to year, well, right guard was the weakest spot last season. So does Brunskill continue to handle that spot, or can you find improvement through a player like Jalen Moore, through a player like Spencer Burford? We'll see. But I think that's key for the 49ers. My main point of criticism for them is that they haven't, you're going to need at least one of these guys to really contribute that you drafted along the offensive line, right? You're going to need draft and development to work. Banks absolutely has to pan out. That's mandatory left guard. But one of those lower round picks, like a Jalen Moore, like a Spencer Burford, who was a 4th round pick, so it wasn't all too low. One of those guys at some point, they have to come through to help elevate the water level of this offensive line. Wide receiver core, we have this year mixed with Trey is going to be dangerous. Yep. I mean, you got a lot of very intriguing names in there, complementary skill sets. Jawan Jennings is physical. He can separate. He's fearless. Danny Gray is really fast. How are they going to mix and match those two? Obviously, the headliners are Deebo and Brandon Ayuk. I agree. I think it's going to be a dangerous receiving core, and I'm excited to see how it's all going to work in unison, because Kyle Shanahan has to make sure that those pieces can complement each other. Hit the like button, says Mike. He is correct. Hit that like button. Smash it. Let me get some water here. Where's everybody watching the Warriors game tonight? I'm going to watch the Athletic Club Oakland. Very excited. Reservation there. It's to me that's the most intense game watching atmosphere in the Bay Area. So I thought Game 4 Friday night would be a good time to head up to the Athletic Club in Oakland. Yeah, it is warm outside. That is very, very true. Who will be the Nickelback? You know, Darqueze Dennard is probably the favorite to start up a Nickelback, but I think the future is Samuel Womack III. And the 49ers have a lot of players that can play that nickel position, but Dennard earned a lot of respect last year. Came in for 18 snaps in Week 18. After Jaquaski Tart got hurt, K'Wan Williams was already out of that game. When Tart got hurt at strong safety, Dante Johnson had to move from nickel to safety. Dennard, freshly signed by the football team, had to come in a nickel. Toughest assignment of the year. Cooper Kupp was on the other side, and Cooper Kupp didn't really do anything. So Dennard's a veteran. He's been around the block. He knows what offenses are going to try to attack with, and he proved his mettle when the 49ers needed him most last year. So he's my favorite to start opening day at Nickelback, and I may even have to update my depth chart spreadsheet just to get that thing reflective of where Darqueze Dennard is for the 49ers. Am I concerned with the depth at tight end? If Kittle goes down, it seems iffy. Yeah, I've constantly said that tight end seems like one of the sketchier depth position groups. They gave Tyler Kroft a little bit of guaranteed money. He's done it before. I think he would help kind of hold the line, if Kittle goes down. But the problem is there's a difference between holding the line and maintaining some semblance of receiving explosiveness. Now, Kittle gives you wide receiver type of receiving explosiveness. So he's not a player you're just going to replace if he gets hurt. But my question is, if Kittle does get hurt, where does the pass production come from at tight end? And it's important for this offense for that receiving production to continue coming from tight end and not just the receiver spots, because you have the run pass sell adaptability, right? When you have that tight end able to catch passes, he lines up in that 3-point stance. The defense doesn't know if he's about to run block or if he's going to go out in a pass pattern. That's a different type of strain that you put on an opposing defense than just running 4 wide. Because if you run 4 wide, your blocking credibility is not going to be really high. You're not really selling the threat of the run all too much. But when you have the tight end out there, you're selling the threat of the run, and then you can compromise the defense because you're going to get a linebacker on him in coverage. So that's why it's really important that somebody not named Kittle can also establish themselves in the receiving game. The 49ers have that hope with Charlie Werner. We'll see if he could take the next step this year. Tyler Kroft, back in the day, he had a season where he had quite a few catches, 40 plus, I think, with the Bengals. So if you're looking at, let me see where Tyler Kroft's actually. This is intriguing to me. Let's go and look back at his career high in catches. Tyler Kroft, Bengals, Bills, Jets. Yes, I was right. With the Bengals in 2017, Tyler Kroft had 42 catches for 404 yards. Yeah, he was 25 then. He's going to be 30 years old this year, so maybe we can't really expect Tyler Kroft to get back to that. But you do need somebody, whether it be Werner, whether it be Dwelly, whether it be Kroft, Troy Fumagalli, Jordan Matthews. Hey, maybe he's picked up the strength and learned how to block. That was the big issue for him after moving to tight end last season. Somebody needs to augment the explosiveness that Kittle brings to the table, because that explosiveness that Kittle brings out of the 3-point stance where you could sell the run, that's what really makes this offense sing, because Kyle Shanahan can confuse defenses before the snap. All right, any more questions? Yes, Jordan Matthews is back. He caught a deep pass the other day from Trey Lance. Trey Lance, first he went deep to Ray McLeod, then he went deep to Jordan Matthews, back-to-back plays, practice 11-on-11s for the 49ers. So that was cool. That was during this practice. Oh, that's not that one. I want to open up this one. There we go. Right here. That was the Pro Football Reference page for Tyler Kroft. It was at this practice. The 49ers put out a little bit of a video, and I had a video of Deebo Samuel playing catch with Carter Shanahan. Here it is, just for you guys to see. Carter's on the left. Deebo is on the right. Deebo had to put on the gloves. Somebody asked about Carter's arm fitness. Looks fine. They're playing catch for a while. Deebo's arm fitness looks fine, too. No, Deebo Samuel is also not overweight. A lot of people were trying to say, oh, Deebo looks out of shape. Guys, Deebo is a big, big receiver. The dude is wide. That is his game. He runs people over. So Deebo Samuel is at the weight that you would want him to be at for the style of play that he brings to the table. So just a quick look at Deebo Samuel playing catch with the coach's son, which means that I think the relationship with the 49ers is not looking bad at all right now. Yep. Carter Shanahan's arm fitness looking good. All right. Any more questions? Nick Bosa's quads are indeed still huge. Everybody like the channel. So I guess you can't like the channel. You like the video. You like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's been a good Friday afternoon. I might record a couple other videos to share with you over the course of the weekend. So thank you, everybody. It's been fun. I will be with you for the rest of this whole off season. So you guys can be assured that this channel will be here for you for some consistent, in-depth 49ers content. So subscribe right now, like the video. We'll talk to you all soon. Everybody have a great Friday afternoon.